Okay, as we begin our study tonight, again, I want to ask this question. What do you love? 7 things you love about Gravel Hill. 7 things you love about Gravel Hill. So I'm not going to point to anybody. I see my brother got his list all ready to go. Amen. So what I'm going to do is just ask all of you just to go ahead and volunteer to see who wants to go first, who wants to go last. It's all up to you. I tell you what, since I'm the pastor, since I'm the leader, let me see if I can lead the way. Maybe this will inspire you to jump right in. I love Gravel Hill, first of all, because I believe God is here. Yeah, I believe God is here. Whenever we gather together, we feel his presence. Secondly, I love Gravel Hill because of the people who are here at Gravel Hill. And not only here at the church, but in this community. I've been here for a couple of years, and I've had the opportunity to get to know even many of those who do not attend our church. And so I love it because of that. Thirdly, I love Gravel Hill because of our ministries. We do have many ministries here at Gravel Hill that do not only help us as members, but also help the community around us. Okay, so I really enjoy that. I like the spirit of cooperation here at Gravel Hill. Whenever Gravel Hill members decide to put their minds together and get something done, they get it done. And I really, really love that. Number 5, I love the food here at Gravel Hill. I might as well tell the truth. I love the food at Gravel Hill. Folks here can surely, it's on JD's list also. Yeah, I went to a funeral a few days ago, and we had to bury this guy in Watertown. Way out there past Lebanon, and we had the repast at a church. I think it's Mount Zion Baptist Church there in Watertown. I'm telling you, those people can sure enough cook, but it just wasn't Gravel Hill. The chicken didn't taste like Gravel Hill's chicken. I mean, nothing tasted right. It tasted good, but it just wasn't Gravel Hill. So I love the food at Gravel Hill. Number 6, I love the location of Gravel Hill. This is a beautiful location. Whenever I come up here, I am inspired time and time again by what I see around us. And lastly, I like the appearance of Gravel Hill. The appearance not only of the building, but the appearance of our love, our working together, the appearance of our personality as a church, that what people see. It's amazing what people see when they see your church. Not only the building, but when they see how we interact with one another. So those are the 7 things I love about my church, the Gravel Hill Missionary Baptist Church. Anyone else? Anyone wants to jump in? You want to go, JD? Go ahead.
I said we have a great pastor. We love you and we appreciate you.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, and the location, where it's located in the community. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate the outreach to the community that the church does. Mm-hmm. And we have a great Bible study here. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And there's great people in this church. I love every one of them. They're just wonderful people. Mm-hmm. And we always feel welcome in this church. It's like we know that God is here. But everybody just makes us so welcome here.
Right. Right.
It's wonderful. Mm-hmm. And we also have great singing.
Yes.
The church has compassion on people, and also the food.
Okay.
Every chance I get, I partake of it.
I get a feeling I'm going to hear that word food a couple of times. All right. Anyone else? Gail.
Well, mine's almost like the same as yours. I say I love Gravel Hill because of the people. Mm-hmm. And I love Gravel Hill because it's on an old tradition, and that is what the church is really about. Mm-hmm. It's really about God. That's about it. And I like the friendliness of the people. Mm-hmm. And Gravel Hill has an eager to learn God's word.
Amen. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And anyway, I like Gravel Hill because it's a small church, but it's working together to make the church the best it can be.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I go to Sunday worship and Bible study and teaching of God's word.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Anyone else?
Well, I'm not a member yet.
That's okay. That's okay. Non-members are welcome.
But my heart is here,
Hey, okay.
and I just love everyone. I just wrote down a few things I love. Let me just line it up.
Okay.
The pastor's persuasiveness, love, and determination for the glorious operation daily of the Gravel Hill Missionary Baptist Church.
All right.
The love and friendliness of the deacons, mothers of Gravel Hill, and members. The manner in which the hand of fellowship is extended to people from all walks of life and those in prison. The pastor, deacons, and mothers call on the sick and shut-ins, which have been taken care of through fervent prayers. And number 5, the Lord has and is still taking care of this wonderful church, her pastors and members.
Shucks, I need that. Yeah, okay, I like that. Okay. Anyone else? Why do you love Gravel Hill? Anyone else?
It's a small church. I enjoy that part. The one-on-one person that you get out of a small church. And I love my pastor. You do a good job of teaching. You can do. It's, I like a sermon that when you get something, when you get finished the sermon,
You got something out of it, right? Right.
I love the family atmosphere of Gravel Hill. This home,
Yeah.
I've been here since I was born.
Okay.
The togetherness of it. I love the teaching, and God is here.
Amen. That's good. I want to hear from some of our new members. I ain't calling no names. I just want to hear from one of our new members. That's all I said.
I'm gonna tell you right up front. I forgot to do all. Don't kick me out of class.
No, I wouldn't get. That's all right.
It just hit me. I wrote it somewhere. I can't find it.
That's all right.
My memory ain't that good.
Yeah. Well, let me hear from you. Since you did, let me hear from your wife.
And I'm not a member either,
And she
Right.
didn't tell me.
but I did my homework.
Now hold up.
You didn't tell me that.
The wife is not a member, but she did her homework now. Okay.
You didn't tell me nothing.
What you got, Therese?
When we first came here, I felt welcome. We did just coming here, and I could feel God's presence in the church.
Good.
And the way you preach, you know, sometimes you go to church and after you leave, you wonder, well, what did I get out of it?
Yeah.
I could tell altar prayer, fellowship, and young people's praise and accomplishments that everybody's always talking about the young people. Enjoying the other churches when they visit.
Yeah.
The singing, the choir, and a good feeling you feel when you leave.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I do believe that is important. One thing she did say is that after you leave the church, you ought to feel like you got something.
All right,
If you went to a restaurant hungry and they brought the food and you ate and you left hungry, guess what you might do? You might go back in there and tell them what? I want my money back. Or the service was not satisfactory. One of the goals I have as a preacher and a pastor is not only on Sunday, but even here in Bible study, that when God's people get together for these times of studying or worshiping, that we ought to leave that setting, leave that experience feeling like we've got something out of it. We've enjoyed the experience. We have grown. There have been times when I've been preaching and I look at the congregation and I'll say something and I'll see a member's eyes go like, oh yeah. You know, like the light goes on. And even in Bible study. And that there, right there, really hits the nail on the head about what we do. Let me have one more and then we'll be through. Okay.
Born in Gravel Hill. I lived in Gravel Hill. And most of us all, like the man said, well, we're 7 miles from heaven.
7 miles from heaven. I got you. Okay.
And plus the churches, we have a nice fellowship.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me jump down to number 7. Most of the time, I love to hear people talk about Gravel Hill.
Then that's good.
Love to hear people talk about it.
Yeah.
You go anywhere. And you can tell people, they say, where are you from? Oh, I know about Gravel Hill.
Yeah.
I love to hear people talk about Gravel Hill because it's something that is all, when you go to a church and when you leave, you know you've been to church. But when you go to someone else's church and you hear someone talking about your church, you know they've been to your church.
You know, it's amazing, even with me, when I go to other functions or other events, or services, and people say, oh, you're Thomas Rainsbury, you're the pastor of Gravel. I say, yes, man, that is some church. I mean, they just begin to say glowing things about our church. That, my brother and sisters, is a blessing. When people can say nice things, regardless of all the problems we have, when people can say nice things about your church, call it or consider it a blessing, because I'm here to tell you, there are some other churches, when their names are called, I ain't telling you something I heard, I tell you what I know, when other churches, it's unfortunate, but that when their names are called, there may be a certain reputation that goes along with that church, or a certain image that goes along with that church, that is not always pleasant. But the years I have been here, when you call the name Gravel Hill, I do hear complimentary remarks, which again is a blessing. Okay. Yes, Thomas.
No, it is. It did make me feel good. Three members that, three people that wasn't members of the Gravel Hill, and it's one thing. It's 3 things that they all had in common. That they enjoyed the fellowship or the way people made them feel when they come to Gravel Hill.
Right.
They enjoyed your teaching and your preaching, you know, and they just love the atmosphere.
Yeah.
You know, and that is a good feeling, you know.
Oh yeah.
And that makes me want to strive more when visitors come or when people come, you know, to make them feel welcome.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
And I've been to other churches, you said, and be a visitor, and you leave, you still visit.
Because you never know what kind of impression that visitor will leave with. So you want to be sure that he or she, when he or she leaves, that they leave saying, man, that was a nice experience, a nice time I had at that church called Gravel Hill. Let's go to chapter 1 of this new, of the same topic we're talking about, the essential church. And this chapter is entitled, My Faith is Not My Parents' Faith. At the beginning of this chapter, we're introduced to a guy named Joe. Joe lives in East Tennessee. He's a member of his church. He helps lead the church in the praise and worship team, and so he's very active in the church. But Joe, at one time, was a church dropout. Okay, he was a church dropout, but now he is back in the church. On to page 26, next page. we're just going to highlight some things, and as I call it out, you can just underline it. Look at what Joe says in the second paragraph, where it says, Joe continued. He said, I guess since the church was never a critical element of my life, it was easier to leave. One of the reasons why people leave church, and there are numerous reasons which we will discuss, is because the church to them is just no longer important. And when it's not important, guess what? It's easy to just get up and say, I'm out of here. Why? Because it no longer takes up an essential or important role in their life. For whatever reason, it can be for whatever reason, they just don't see it as being important anymore. And in his case, when he looked at the church where he was, he didn't see it as being important anymore. So guess what? It was easy for him to leave. And what did he do? Look at the last line at the bottom of the paragraph. He says, I went from a quiet child to a rebellious adult seeking sin in its greatest degree. So here's a guy who was a member of a church. He left the church. He's back in the church, but he states that he left the church because the church was no longer an important factor in his life. And once he left the church, guess what happened? He just went wild and started doing everything under the sun. Now, when you read the next paragraph, you'll discover that his parents asked him to return. They wanted him to return to the church. But he says at the bottom of that paragraph, quite frankly, the church wasn't the same for me as it was for them. Why? Because the parents, being older, probably grew up in that church, like many of you said. You grew up in Gravel Hill. Well, I think you will probably understand when I say the Gravel Hill of yesterday is not the Gravel Hill of today. Why? Because obviously times have changed. Okay, you may have, Thomas, in your case, and many of you were born here at Gravel Hill. Well, many years later, the church has grown. The church has improved in its ministries. The church has done some things that they were not doing back when you were a child. But in the life of this guy named Joe, even though his parents may have seen the church or experienced the church on the same level they always have, he doesn't see it that way. That's why he says the church was not the same for him as it was for them, which is an indication that Joe was looking for something different. He was looking for something different. Now, when we go down about 2 paragraphs where it says, I guess I never saw. Here is a problem that must be confronted and at some point has to be resolved by any church. And that is the connectivity between a person's faith and the church. Sometimes people have a way of looking at the two as separate entities. My faith and my church are different. They're not the same. Look at what he says. He says, I guess I never saw how my faith and my church connected. Wow. Think about that for a second. The church represents Christianity, which is a faith, right? The church represents our belief in Jesus Christ. The church represents our faith and allegiance to Jesus Christ. But for some reason, Joe says he could not connect his faith to his church. The way he looked at it, there were two different things. He said, I knew I was saved. I knew I was sinning. I felt convicted about living this lifestyle, but I didn't see how it all tied into the church. My brothers and sisters, whenever a person in any church cannot make a connection, cannot say, I don't see how the two are related, that is a problem. That is something that needs to be resolved, and we're going to talk about this later, and let me bring it up right now. That is why I said a few weeks ago that there are many people who have no problems being Christians. What they have a problem with is being a church member. Not because there's anything wrong with the church idea per se, but depending on what church he or she may attend, that church in their eyes does not represent what they believe as a Christian. And that is a problem. There are many reasons why, because there are many reasons and excuses for why people leave the church. But when you look to the bottom, it says, the 18 to 22-year-olds did not see their faith like their parents' faith. The church connection was somehow lost with the younger generation. Can I ask you something? What's wrong with our parents' faith? Nothing. Hate to say it like that, but yeah, none. We grew up on our parents' faith. Many of us are here. We sing that song. In fact, that's the title of my first CD, Old Time Religion. We all grew up on the old time religion when we lived with our parents. But guess what? There's nothing wrong with it. What's happening is, I think the younger and middle-aged generation may be looking for more contemporary ways to interpret our parents' faith. It may be that, yes, they hear all the cliches, they hear all the statements we make about the Lord will make a way somehow. I can hear a young person saying, okay, the Lord will make a way somehow. When? I mean, that's how they think. They're very critical. Critical, not meaning to criticize, but analytical, maybe I can say that. They're very analytical. Even my daughter, Yema asks questions about some things that I may say, or some things that others may say that just won't fly by like it did. She'll stop and say, no, I want you to show me or explain to me what that means. So, whereas our parents' religion, our parents' faith is solid, it's a good foundation, I think the younger generation are trying to find a more contemporary way or a more modern translation to connect with our parents' faith. You got your hand up?
Yeah, I will say something sort of on the same line that you were saying there. Our generation, when we was coming up, it's kind of like you said, we didn't question, either you went to church or this is, you respected this person. It's kind of like when I was talking about the chicken, me and my little brother, was standing when the preacher used to come to your house.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my little brother, we were sitting there looking, and the preacher and his kids was eating. We had said, wait, but it's kind of like you just saying that is it that we fail to, or we don't know how to explain our kids are more inquisitive about things, and maybe we're falling down on maybe teaching the connection?
That may be one possibility. First of all, we have to understand ages 18 to 22 are college students. And in college, they're taught to be analytical. Even if they're not in college, they may be in some technical school or even a trade school, you still have to learn to be analytical. And I think what many of them do is they bring that analytical skill, they apply that to every aspect of their life, including the church. All right? And so when something is said, when something is pronounced, when something is declared, don't be surprised if they say to you, explain that to me. And what we as teachers, what we as leaders will be required to do will be to sit down with that young man or that young woman and try to explain it to them, not in our terms, but in that. Doesn't mean we have to have their level of education. Got nothing to do with that. But it simply means talking to them in their language. It means explaining to them what it is that grandmama or granddaddy used to say 50 years ago and how that applies to you today. Because I'm telling you right now, that religion still stands. That old time, what they call old time religion, guess what? It's good enough for my mama. It's good enough for me. But most importantly, it's good enough for me because that's what God gave me through his son Jesus Christ. But when they ask, we have to respond, because that's how they connect their faith to the church. And if they can't make that connection, guess what they do? Pack their bags and leave. Dan.
Well, if you look at it, it says their faith is not your faith.
Mm-hmm.
Simple reason. Common sense would tell you nobody takes life serious until they become 30 or beyond.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Okay.
But a simple reason why a child will look at you and look at your age. This is the day that children look at now. They don't look at it the way we can. They look at you and say, well, you don't live this way. I don't have to worry about tomorrow because I know I'm giving up tomorrow. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? That's the thing about why I said their faith is not your faith. Mm-hmm. They believe, which they figure they know they're going to wake up. Mm-hmm. But you go to bed with a different type of attitude because you know God will promise you one day at a time. Mm-hmm. And they don't never take it serious. Basically, you'll promise 3 scores and 2, 70 years.
Now, as we said earlier, they don't have a problem with the faith. They don't have a problem with religious matters. Okay, the young people, that age group, and even a little older, they don't have a problem with that. But listen to what the authors, turn to page 27, at the bottom of the second paragraph, page 27. So they don't have a problem. They believe the tenets of the faith. But look at what this says. It says, but unless this generation fuses or brings together faith and church, they will see no reason to do what? Stay in church. Frankly, the faith of the parents is not reason enough for them to claim as their own. Now, the faith of the parents is solid. There's nothing wrong with the faith. However, they want another understanding of that faith. They want maybe a higher revelation of that faith that they can identify with, and then go ahead and say, okay, I can make your faith my faith as well. This is a generation that is constantly evolving. It's constantly changing. Now, we may not have a whole lot of them here right now, but I'm telling you, little Mia and the Malone children and all them, they're growing up. Isaiah and Jordan, they're growing up. I mean, before you know it, they will be between ages 18 and 22. And they will need, what they're hearing now is good, but by the time they get to those ages, they will need to have their own understanding. They may want to claim their own understanding of the faith we practice today. The same Christian faith, nothing different, just their own understanding of it. And they want to be able to hear it and understand that faith. Next paragraph. Go ahead.
I said a 3-year-old.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Make you scratch your head.
And can I say something?
Yeah.
I know I was talking to a I think she was around a 29-year-old lady, and she had prayed, and she just did not understand. I said, baby, if you got the time to get on your knees and pray and ask God, you have to have the patience and the faith to sit there and wait on him, because he's gonna do whatever you ask if it's in his will. It may not come when you want, but he's never let you down.
Now that may be also something that many of our young and vibrant and intelligent youth may still need to learn.
Oh yeah.
The virtue of patience.
Patience, and that's what most of it.
Because you do know we are living in a microwave society.
Oh yeah. Every time.
I want it, and I want it when?
Now.
It's called instant gratification. I want it now. Okay. My mother and I, we drink instant coffee as opposed to brewed coffee. She drinks decaf, I drink regular. So all you got to do is just put a little coffee, pour the water, a little sugar, you got coffee. But if you're going to brew it, you got to, you're going to have to pour some water in that coffee machine, sit there and wait, turn it on, look at your watch. But when it's ready, it's ready. All right? Well, in many situations, people want something now, and that includes understanding of the Christian faith, to the point where I want God to work now. I want this thing that I'm trying to understand, I want to understand it when? Right now. And as a result, there is a lack of patience. And as our mothers and fathers told us, I used to hear my grandmother say it all the time, God's time is the best. Yes, it is. And God's time, as you were saying earlier, he may not come when you want him. God's time is not always our time. In fact, God doesn't operate on time. He operates on eternity. We're the one who operate on time. We've got that 24-hour cycle that we go through each day. But God was there before time, and he will be there after time. All right, so we have to wait on him, and that is something that we may not see too present in the lives of the younger generation. In that third paragraph, second line from the top, he says the youngest generation doesn't necessarily leave their faith, rather they leave their church. Now look at the bottom of the paragraph where he says they aren't dropping their faith, they are what? They are dropping the church. Now, the challenge is, if they're holding to their faith, since they're not dropping their faith, what do we do to get them to also hold on to the church? Because like it or not, my brothers and sisters, the church is a biblical entity. Jesus created the church. Of course, it's the spiritual church, that is. Because, and it's kind of interesting too, because whereas they may be looking at the word church just to mean this building and this organization, actually, even if they drop the church, they are still the church. Because we are the spiritual body. We are the church, right? So the challenge is to get them to hold on to both the faith and the church. If not, what we will have is a generation of people who may think they don't need other Christians, especially within this context of the church. All they need is what? Spirituality. All they need is Jesus. But in terms of the gathering at the parents' church, or worshiping how the parents worship, or even in modern ways of worship, they may feel, I don't need all that. I just need to be a Christian. I just need to be spiritual, and that's it. And what happens after that, I think I've told you before, whenever we turn away from the organizational and spiritual aspect of the church, whereas when to be a Christian, it doesn't do anything for our Christian growth. No matter how bad the church may look in the eyes of many, my brothers and sisters, the church is a good thing. Okay, it has been this way for over thousands of years, and we are still here. Yes, we change. We have reformed. You remember Martin Luther in the Reformation. We have reformed over the years, but still the church remains a solid entity in any society, because that's where we need to be, especially as we not only remain connected to our faith, but remain connected to each other. Any questions or comments before we go to the next topic?
I have a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
It says they aren't dropping their faith, they're dropping the church.
Right.
I'm one of those believers that I don't think that children should be seen and not heard. I believe that if you don't give them something to do, they will leave the church.
Yeah.
And you have to, the older ones have to start training the youth, because they're not going to have that position always.
And that's one of the things.
Something to do.
Right.
And I don't think that everyone should be a pew member. You know, there's something in the church, whether it's sweeping or dusting, or, you know, give everybody something to do to make them feel a part of it.
Because if you remember the guy who we met in the introduction, that was one of his problems. He didn't know where to fit. He didn't know where to serve. Why? Because really, he had nothing to do. In Joe's situation, he worked with the media ministry, and then he worked with the praise and worship ministry. So here you are with someone who wants to be a part, who wants to work, who wants to be active, but then nothing is given to that individual to do. Once that happens, that individual may begin to say, well, you know what? They don't need me. And guess what happens? They'll take their stuff and they will leave. So what we have to do is to keep them engaged, keep them active, keep them doing things in the church, because I believe that is one of the avenues that will connect their faith to the church. Why? Because they're practicing their faith in the church. And once your faith can become active and practical within the church, then yeah, you see that connection, especially if what is being practiced is based upon the Word of God. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, I see that. I can serve and I can do that here. And he or she can say, you know what? I see the connection. But if that connection is not there, they'll leave. Okay? Anyone else?
There's a saying that an idle head is the devil workshop.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And all the devil. Always something. That's one place the devil knows how to work in an idle mind. Damn.
Well, if you have people in the church who've been doing the job 30, 40, 50 years, but you have youngsters sitting out there, just sitting there, who's got the job? People's been here all this time. Step aside. Let the young people step up and do something. I mean, you done shine. Let the young ones step up and let them shine. Let somebody have something to talk about other than just older people sitting up there doing everything. Young people step up and do their job. That's what they in church for. We bring the church and do what we do. You set them down, tell them to be quiet.
Before the older, like you said, older folk step aside, there's got to be some training.
You can't train if you don't step aside.
No. You train before you leave. You don't leave and expect everyone to just.
When the old ones leave, they won't step aside. They won't train the young ones.
Okay, but that's what I'm saying. Before they step aside in any church, you got to train. You're right. You got to train the individuals.
You always say the young people is what? The church. That's the church. What if you never step aside and let the young ones come up? When you leave, the church is through. Because why? You haven't trained the young ones to do nothing. Then they sit there, I don't know what to do.
I agree.
You can't. You don't teach nobody else. When you leave, who's going to work on the cars here? All right. And think about church.
Yeah.
Okay, the subject of my faith is not like my parents' faith. I know when I was growing up, my faith was not like my parents' faith. The reason my faith was not like my parents' faith, because they had a mature faith.
Yeah.
Where they had went through trials, where they had seen death, when they have been out in the world and they had seen how cruel the world was. I was thinking that naive state, thinking the world is my portion.
Right.
Now, as I done got older, my faith is where their faith was, a mature faith. My children's faith may not be where mine is at now. But you have to mature and you go through something to make that faith so for you to see God for yourself.
Exactly. And that is a very good point in terms of the difference between mature faith and younger faith, if you will. Because many of us, many of you have been through things in life that strengthens, that makes your faith different from mine. And I'm the pastor, and I'm preaching all that good stuff. However, many of you have been along this road longer than I have, and your faith is stronger. Yes, my faith is strong as well, but it may not have reached the level of maturity that yours has reached. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with my faith. It just means the only difference is yours has been along the way for a longer time than I have. Okay. The other day I was driving down I-40, and thank God for my car. I ain't complaining. Some folk ain't got a car. At least I'm gonna have to walk the gravel here. I can drive. Hey, bless my heart for real. I was looking at my my odometer, and I watched it change from 249,999 to 250,000. It just turned over 250,000 miles on that car right there. And all these Cadillacs were passing by, Mercedes were passing by, Lexus passing by, brand new shiny cars passing by. I was like, ooh-wee, yeah, that's sharp. But I looked at my odometer and it had 250,000 miles. We're on the same interstate, probably traveling the same speed and same distance, but my car has been running longer than the newer cars. Don't mean it's any better or anything like that, but this car got more mileage than the newer ones who probably just came out of the dealership yard, And so we're on the same road. I got some dents on it. I've had some work done on it, but guess what? It's still running, isn't it? What I'm saying here is we are all on the same road of faith. We're traveling, but some of us have been on that road. We got more mileage than some younger person or a younger faith. Okay, so chances are those newer cars have not been to places where this car has been. That's why it has 250,000 miles on it, because I've been everywhere you can think about it. I've been to Baltimore. I think I've been to New York in that car. I've been down south in that car. I've been a lot of places in that car. It's still running. Has a lot of miles. The newer one, shining, nice, bright, and everything, also is running. But this one has more miles and has been more places than that one. The reason why there may be a difference in the understanding of the faith sometimes is because some of our faith has more mileage. We've been through some stuff. We've been some places that others have not been. So a younger person or a younger generation may not understand. But that does not release us from the responsibility to explain to them in a way that they will understand the maturity and the strength of our faith. The object here, my brothers and sisters, is to be sure that not only this age group, 18 to 22, remain in the church, but to be sure that they remain and become active in the church, because for those of us who have traveled more miles, one day our engine's gonna lock and we're gonna have to be towed away on a flatbed and taken off the road. And guess what? The newer ones will have to remain on the road to carry this thing. John Mitchell he's not alive. He's dead. He's been dead for a number of years. But guess what? Gravel Hill is still here. You found the church back in the 1800s. This is 2011. We are still on the road. Not because he is still here, but because over the years, what the older generation has done is they have taught the younger generation. And you know that the relay race in the Olympics, how you're running, and then you pass the baton, and someone does what? Grab the baton and keeps running. That's how it is. We are still running the race. However, there will be times when our older or more mature faith will just have to be explained to those who are running faster than we are, and say, listen, the race is not over. Keep on running, and this is how you ought to do it. And I do believe that we can let them see it and let them understand it, that they will connect. It is a frightening proposition. It's a frightening proposition to see or to know that a group of Christians, a generation of Christians, will stop seeing how their faith connects to their church. And once they don't see it, you ain't gonna see them. Dan.
I read in the Bible, it says one faith, one God, and one baptism.
Yeah.
And it also says, all coming to my big God and work. It doesn't matter. How is it from 7 to 3? You are from 7 to 3. Whatever you get paid, if I get there at 2:59, I'm going to make the same amount as you make. And that's what the Bible says. Regardless of how long you've been in the church, we all do what? We believe in one thing, one God. Which means payday is going to be the same. Regardless of how long you've been there, if this man just stepped up and said, I believe in God, and we all die the same day, bang, it's going to be the same payday as that. Nothing changes.
All right, any other questions or comments? You've been quiet tonight, Steve. What's up with that? Don't take too much in that. Yeah, okay, I appreciate that. Okay. Any other questions? I'm going to start with the myth of freedom next week. Any other questions or comments on that, on what we've talked about so far? Yes, sir. As we should.
Now, there's a part of it I'm asking. Of course, I remember the old Indiana. They started me way back. All the teachers stepped back and said, you're going to teach. I'm going to sit in the class and listen to you. I started out. Well, I went to the service and I came to me. They waited and watched it, you're going to go back to teaching. The first thing you got to work with your young people. They ain't going to sit there long. See, the world's looking at them.
Yep.
They was busy. Now, why didn't you sit there? Yeah, they got so much going on now. They get attention.
Yes.
And that's the reason they go out from the church, because of lack of training.
You're right. A lack of training. That is another reason why this young generation, or people, period, younger and middle-aged people, may leave the church, because again, they may feel they're not being trained to carry on the work of the church. Here is a, yes sir.
Let's add this, man. A lot of people say, well, you have to be a certain age. I was coming 22 when that put me closer. Because you think at any time you might leave out this world. It made you get close. And as they study the Bible, pray, you get him in it. Yes, it's better, it's closer and closer.
Yeah.
Brother,
Yeah.
all right, you know, as far as training, young folks, we do need training.
Yeah.
It's just like I was thinking about Dickie Valentine. All right, he believed that young folks do stuff. All right, now, but he just wouldn't throw them out there in the water and leave them.
Right.
Many deacons here, he said, you just stand with me, watch me do what I do. He wouldn't just throw them up there and say, go for it.
Right.
I mean, there's kind of, that's what I think when I think about word memory. You got to show them what to do. Not just give them a bunch of lists and say, go.
Follow these instructions. Yeah.
And I've got to say, in all of the years that I've been living, many churches that I've been to, I haven't saw one that comes close to Deacon Donnie Valentine as far as his knowledge, his love for people, and how to quiet storm.
Yeah.
He was the best that I've ever.
Yeah. I have to agree. I have to agree. Wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice if in the coming year, in the year 2012, that maybe all or some leaders of our church would identify a young member of our church, recommend that member to the church to be an apprentice for their position. Wouldn't that be something? If the whole year, or throughout the year, if I've been serving in a position for Lord knows how many years, that I just say, well, I want to train someone to do this, and identify the person who I think, maybe either by talking to that person, by talking to the pastor about that person, by talking to the deacons about that person, and saying, I want brother so-and-so or sister so-and-so to come and sit alongside me and let them see what I do. Even if it doesn't mean that the trainer or the person in the ministry is leaving the ministry immediately, but just to say, let me begin to pass on this knowledge to someone who can use it. I often think about people who have a lot of knowledge and wisdom in their minds, in their hearts, and don't open that to share with someone else, and one day the Lord calls their name and says, it's time to come home. Guess where that knowledge and wisdom is going? To the grave. The soul is going to heaven, but all that is going to the grave. It would sure be nice for those of us who serve to begin to think seriously about the fact that our church has a future. And if the church has a future, there's got to be someone in those future spots to carry on, especially if we're not going to be in the future. Because no day is guaranteed.
Amen.
We're here tonight, we could be gone tomorrow. You're right, gone tonight. You got plans on leaving tonight or something? That's what you said, gone tonight?
Gone tonight.
Yeah, okay. All right, now you sound very excited about it. Gone tonight, baby. but look, this is something, and that's why this study is challenging, and this study is going to poke me. It's going to step on my toes. I ain't talking about y'all, I'm talking about me, because there are some serious issues we just absolutely have to confront. We have to come face to face with it, because if we don't and those issues overwhelm us, guess what? We won't know what to do. But think about it. You know, in the year, and I'm sure I'll be bringing this up again, in the year 2012, just thinking of someone I can say, young man, young woman, you know, come, let me show you what I do. You know, and if nothing else, just let them see it, and then eventually turn that into a training session, or make that person an apprentice to see what you do. So one day when you get to the point where you can't do it anymore, you already have someone in place to take over. That's how organizations like the Gravel Hill Baptist Church survive. We carry on. We carry on. We don't stay in one place. We're not stagnant. You're right. Just like we said the other day, we're not stagnant. We keep on moving, because the church is a living body. Let me hear from you, Thomas.
Not only have he taught a lot of people, he taught a lot of preachers.
Yeah.
Amen.
You got that right.
He would share with you, and I've seen myself go to churches and see deacons do things, and I can hear Brother Donnie, son, it's the wrong way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I took advantage of that. Yes, ma'am.
And I was going to touch on Steve too, Brother Donnie. See, Brother Donnie, he would go wherever he needed. He would stand in wherever he needed. We was a youth choir. He drove the bus. My mama was the president, but he was the trainer. Because 5 days a week, we sung on that bus. When the church stopped on that bus every day. Okay, kids, come to the front and see what we was doing. And that was Olivia, Dan, Jackie, Opal, Jesse Jr., Wayne, you name it.
All of y'all. My.
Most was on there. And that was a everyday thing. When school was turned out, as soon as it come back up, we know the drill. We know the drill. And we was the best youth choir around. And we didn't have a piano still. We did alcohol.
Wow.
We sung about music, and the best thing.
And you know, as we close, there's one thing too that I must say about I almost call you Uncle Donnie about Deacon Valentine, which also translates into what we do. Even though I was pastor when I came here newly, and he was chairman of deacons, I always went to him, sit down one-on-one, and I had no problems asking him, D, how you feel about this? Or how do you think I should do this? Now I'm the leader, and so I can hear some of my co-ministers say, "What? You ask a deacon that?" Yeah. Why? The man has been a part of this church for almost 80-some years, or 70-some years, and knows more about church affairs than all the years I spent at American Baptist College. So I had no problems talking to him, and not once did I feel threatened by him, because even though I would say to him, Dig, how you feel about this? You know what he'll say to me? Well, you're the pastor. He would say that first before giving me his recommendation. Here's what I'm trying to say. If you bring someone alongside to say, I'm going to train this brother or train this sister to do what I do, don't feel threatened. Don't feel like, this is mine. No, it ain't yours. It is the Lord's. Whatever position we hold, whether in church or outside of church, it is God. If it's in the kingdom, it's God's kingdom, and no one should feel that their role, their position is under a threat because someone comes in who may know something that they don't know. Something like, listen, it's all in the name of God. We share information, we share training. I've learned so much from all of you sitting here, that has made me a better pastor. But not once have I said, oh, man, you trying to take my job? No. Because trust me when I tell you, you don't want my job. Believe me when I tell you, you don't want this job unless you're called to it, because it is a calling. If you're called, that's something different. But we all train those who need to be trained, that they may become future leaders who will benefit the church and by extension benefit the kingdom of God. Last comment and then we'll close.
I didn't say about the church, about what we were talking about when we started about, we have here, right here, one of the best Sunday schools.
Yeah.
In our opinion. And I like to say one thing. We got 5 teachers here.
Yeah.
Including some more. I'm an assistant superintendent. But that's God's. This is God.
Right.
I'm not saying that I'm the assistant superintendent, and they are some of the best teachers.
Yeah.
We have here.
Yeah.
That's what I want to say.
Yeah. And look at right. And look at what they're doing. Yeah. They're teaching not only the adults, they're teaching the children.
That's what I said. You got to teach
Yeah.
Another sister. They're teaching the children.
Yeah. And I'm sure Lizzie would tell you, and other parents who bring their children would tell you, those children are learning. Not only do you see it when it's time for the catechizing of the lesson, but you see it as they operate in church, that they are learning. And I would say to every person, parent or child or youth, to be trained, to be taught, you got to show up. If the table is laid, if the dinner is set, you got to show up to get what's on that table. We don't do this by osmosis, where you just put your head on the Bible and then you learn. No. Or you lay your head on it, and no. You got to actually be there to learn this stuff. Okay? Next Wednesday, we'll pick up with the myth of freedom. What is next Wednesday's date? Who has a calendar? Today is the what? Today's the 28th? 5th? All right, September 5th. October 5th. Woo-hoo. Oh, wait a minute, y'all. October 5th is Annie Lee's birthday.
Yeah.
So just in case, if someone can encourage her to come, maybe I can get a cake or some ice cream.
And the 11th is my birthday.
Yeah, Yes, mommy, we know. I know. Yeah, I know. Lord, mama, okay. The 11th? Hers is the 11th, yeah. October, yeah. But what I'm saying is since, yeah, since, and, you know, and what day is the, oh, that's Tuesday. Actually,
4th is Wednesday, Tuesday.
no, I mean the 11th. The 11th is on Tuesday. Yeah, it's a Tuesday. But my thing is, and she's not here tonight, that's why I can say this, but, you know, Annie has been one of the most faithful to Bible study. And if I know for sure she's coming next Wednesday, maybe we can have some punch or some cookies or and cake or something and surprise her. You know, she's not here tonight, but hopefully she'll be here. And then just a thought. I'll leave it to the minds of all of you. All right, so we'll be here on next Wednesday, the 5th, October the 5th, to continue our study. And then we'll move on from there.